Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Maham Jyotirgamaya Mrityormam Amrita Gamaya Avir Maedhi Rudra Yate Dakshinam Mukham Te Namaham Pahinityam. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. And reach us through and through ourselves, and evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. So my subject this morning is the God of Vedanta. And we're going to be talking about the personal God, the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer of this world, the omniscient, the omnipotent, the omnipresent, the omnibenevolent Lord of the universe, the God who is worshipped in all religions of the world. Sanskrit word for God is Ishvara. And Ishvara is defined in the Upanishads as that being from which all beings have come, and by which all beings are sustained, and into which all things go when they return. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddesher junatishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra ruddhani mayaya. In the Bhagavad Gita refers to this concept of the Ishvara, the personal God of Vedanta, saying that the whole universe revolves like a wheel turned by God, who is at the center, at the hub of the wheel. The best way for us to understand the concept of God, that is the personal God, in Vedanta is to begin with ourselves. Using ourselves, we begin by using ourselves as a model. There's an old principle, an ancient principle of occult science. Yadeveha tadamutra tadamutra tadanviha. Whatever is here is there. Whatever is there is here. As above, so below. Whatever is in the vyashti, that means the individual, similarly, it is in the collective. Whatever is in the macrocosm mirrors the microcosm. And so if we want to know about the macrocosm, about the universe, and about the sum total of everything, then we need to study ourselves. Each one of us is an individual person. And God also is a person. It's just he's a cosmic person. So we have a microcosm, a person. We can say that's true about ourselves. I am an individual. So also it's reasonable to see as beloved, so below, that there must be it's reasonable for us to assume that there is a cosmic person. Person here means, we'll talk a little bit more about what is a person. But in Vedanta, of course, person means a self-conscious being. And so there is a cosmic, we're going to postulate. You have to put all this, the argument, going to take you through step by step this argument, I hope, that there is a cosmic person, and that each individual, we look at ourselves, is a microcosm of body, mind, and soul, gross, subtle, and causal. So too, we can think of the cosmic person as having a body, a mind, and a soul, a gross, a subtle, and a causal dimension. Let's begin here just with the body. We can see that we have an individual body. Our bodies could be described from the point of view of physics, from the point of view of chemistry, or from the point of view of biology. Sometimes it's thought we could think of, it used to be in ancient times, they used to think of animals or just kind of like machines. But now we know, certainly we think of ourselves as we're not a machine, we're more like an organism. That is, we're a living organism. That's who our human, our physical nature. And no one body exists in isolation in this world. We know that in order to understand anything in this world, we have to relate it to, we have to make reference to something else in order to explain that, and explain that. If you take a flower and you look at the flower and you try to explain what is the nature of this flower, how it grows, where it came from, how it lives, we have to refer to the soil and the climate and the water, and pretty soon we see that in order to explain any one particular thing, eventually we find that everything exists in a community of function. Everything's connected. Everything is linked up in a great web of life. There's no such thing as an individual, no man is an island. And that we have to think of them as part of a larger whole. Similarly it is with the body. So our body, we can think of just as we have a body, which we call our physical organism, so we can think of that cosmic body, the macrocosm, as also having different, we could think of the physiosphere, the biosphere, all that, the sum total of what we call nature. Nature with a capital N. That's what we're talking about now, the cosmic. And so we can think of nature as, what is nature like? Well, we have different theories about. Some people say that nature is like a machine. But we maintain here in our thesis that nature is more aptly described as an organism, as a living organism. We could call it what's called today a superorganism. It's best described, that is the cosmos, the physical, that is the physiosphere and the biosphere, is best described as a system that works together and that functions in a way that's similar to the way the human organism functions. And so the thesis here is that just as we have an individual body, so there is a cosmic body. Our individual bodies are part of that cosmic body, which is called in Sanskrit the Virat. Now, just as there is an individual and cosmic body, so we know as we just do introspection, we know that we also are body, mind, and soul. We know that we have a mind. We're a mind being. That is, we live in a mansion of thought. That mansion has an unconscious, a conscious, and a superconscious. And our conscious minds are filled with sensations, with emotions, feelings, with beliefs, desires, images. We have an unconscious, a subconscious mind, a great storehouse of memory. And we have a kind of largely unknown superconscious. And as it is yadeveha tadamutra, as it is here, so as also it is in the cosmos. There is a great cosmic mind. The cosmic mind is the unity, the sum total, the collective of all minds. Sanskrit words are vyashti and samashti. I don't know why I'm telling you that. Doesn't make any difference. English is better. The individual, what we call the individual and the collective. So there is a collective, a universal macrocosmic mind. And the macrocosmic mind is the sum total of all the individual minds. We could call it has a collective consciousness that contains all of that's aware of the now. Remember, God is like us. God is in time, in space. And God is aware of the now. God is aware of all thoughts, the sum total of all beliefs and desires of all minds in the world. That's the contents of the consciousness of this divine mind, this cosmic universal mind. There's also a collective unconscious. And there's a collective superconscious, which is aware of all of the subtle and causal planes of the cosmos. The intelligent self. Now we're doing introspection. We see in addition to in our mind, we have an intelligence. The intelligence in the individual mind, called the buddhi. This intelligence you can think of, it's like the inner light. It's like the point of light within us. This intelligence condenses to form self-consciousness, the I consciousness within us. So it's the intelligence self that says, I am, that is aware of our I, our ego self, corresponding to the individual I, corresponding to the individual intelligence. So too there is by our analogy, we're trying to work out our analogy here of the individual and the collective. By analogy, there is a great cosmic intelligence called in Sanskrit the Mahat. You'll read all these words if you read there in Swami Vedarupananda's. I'm referring here to the Sankhya cosmology and Sankhya psychology. And in Sankhya cosmology, there is a cosmic intelligence. It's called the Mahat. Mahat means the great universal intelligence. And from that universal intelligence, in the beginning, with the evolution from from that intelligence, the causal state, then arises that universal intelligence. From that condenses a universal I consciousness. When they talk here about in Sankhya, they're talking about the evolution and the involution of the world. This is part of the, remember, we know a lot about evolution. We don't know much about involution. This is part of the involution cycle. So there's a cosmic intelligence that condenses to form a kind of a cosmic I consciousness. This is the I am of God. You remember how in the Christian Bible, Moses goes up on Mount Ararat, and there he meets God. Well, he doesn't see it. Well, he sees the burning bush, and he hears the voice. The voice asks him, "Who are you?" He says, "Well, I am Moses." Then Moses said, "Well, who are you?" And the voice says, "I am that I am." What does that mean? That means I am the I am of all the people. Everybody who says I am the I am of all the people. I'm the sum total of all the I ams. That's the cosmic intelligence. The Mahat and Swami Vivekananda was very fond of quoting a maxim. Nobody knows who first said this. It goes way back to the Greeks. God is a circle. God is an infinite circle whose circumference is nowhere and whose center is everywhere. Man is an infinite circle whose circumference is nowhere, but whose center is in a particular place. So that's an old definition of God and man. What the difference between the individual and the collective. And we see then that man is a body that is ourself. We look at ourself. We see that we have a body, a mind, and a soul. Now, when you get into yoga psychology, of course, they go further than that. They say, no, you don't have a body. You have a body. You have an energy body. You have a mind body. You have an intelligence body. You have a bliss body. You have a witness. They multiply it up to 6 or 7 different levels. Forget about that. We're just saying, make it simple. We say, we look at ourselves. We see we have a body, mind, and soul. That is gross, subtle, and causal. That's one of the principles of the Vedanta philosophy. First clearly defined and expressed in the ancient Sankhya philosophy. Everything that we see is gross, subtle, and causal. See, we know very well about the gross physical world. The subtle world of the mind, we can say, yes, of our own introspective mind, subjective, subtle. We know very little about the objective, subtle world. In any case, you're gross, subtle, and causal. Your body, mind, and soul. Similarly, the God is conceived as having a macrocosmic body, mind, and soul. And the microcosm mirrors the macrocosm. And there is an individual man, that's you and I. And then there is a cosmic man. Let's look here at that idea of the cosmic person. By man and person, I'm translating here the Sanskrit word Purusha. This is a very ancient idea that appears maybe first in the Rig Veda, which is the oldest scripture, religious scripture in the world, where it speaks there are hymns which describe the Adi Purusha, the cosmic man, the first man, the universal person. Of course, they're not referring to a male or female or man, woman, or child or anything like that. They're referring to the cosmic person. He's called the Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha. That is the Purusha which has thousands and thousands of heads, thousands of arms, thousands of legs. Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapa Sabhumi Vishwato Vritva Atyatishta Dashangulam Purusha Evedam Saravaham. Like that it goes, the Purusha Sukta. Ancient thousands of years ago, describing this cosmic person, this universal man who existed in the beginning. In the beginning, there was this being, this cosmic being. Agni Murdha, it says in the Upanishads now, Agni Murdha Chakshushi Chandasuya Disha Shrotre Vag Vivartascha Vedaha. It compares, it's an analogy there. It's saying, this universal being, just imagine, the sun and the moon are his eyes. The wind that blows is like his breath. His voice is the revealed Vedas. All of the arms and the legs and the bodies of all beings in the universe he contains within himself. And so he has thousands of arms, thousands of legs. And that this is the universal man, the cosmic Purusha of the Vedanta philosophy. And I don't know, like, yeah, Mother Nature. Sounds like Mother Nature, right? This cosmic person is the God, the personal God. He's a person. He's a self-conscious being. He's the personal God of Vedanta, and he's the embodiment of the ideal of unity in diversity. And this is the theme of Indian philosophy, the one in the many, unity in diversity. There's one being who is described by many names. In the beginning, there was one. The one is the many. And in the Bhagavad Gita, you will read, Sri Krishna is in the 11th chapter. You will read about how Sri Krishna, that is, who is God, he's like an incarnation of God, he reveals to his the disciple, Arjuna, is asking him about what is God like? What is God really like? See, Arjuna believes that Krishna is an incarnation of God, is like a human embodiment of God. He has two-arm form. But he's wondering, what is God? What are you really like? I know you look like a man, but... And so on that occasion, in the 11th chapter, Sri Krishna reveals to him the Vishwa Rupa. That means the universal form. He appears to Arjuna as the cosmic man, as the cosmic universal man, as I described to you. And Arjuna then in the 11th chapter, it describes in many verses what Arjuna is seeing. And after this revelation and this vision, Arjuna is completely overwhelmed. And he's frightened, he's baffled, he's confused. He can't wrap his brain around it. And so he begs Sri Krishna, please, that's enough, I've seen enough. Please restore, appear to me again in your two-armed form, which Sri Krishna does, and they're back again on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And Arjuna could not grasp the universal form of God. Now we are in the same position, insofar as we cannot conceptualize or visualize or even imagine, really, what this universal person is like. And this is natural. This is as the way it must be, because this universal person is not an individual person. It's not. He is not the universal person is not an actual person. Maybe we could call him a meta person. We could call him a universal person. Let's look here at this word universal. A universal. God, we're going to refer here back to the Platonic theory of knowledge, articulated in Greek philosophy by the Greek philosopher Plato. If you think of the opposite, and this is true of whatever you think of in the world, whatever word you were to think of in your mind, and whatever thing you think of, let's think of the opposite of God, G-O-D. You think of the opposite of dog. How about a dog? When you think of a dog, well, you know what a dog is. You can point to a dog, and you have, how do you know it's a dog? Well, you have in your mind, the word recalls in your mind a concept. And that concept, that word, you could look it up in the dictionary, and that concept will be described in the dictionary. And it pretty much describes what you saw. And that is, the word refers to the concept refers to an idea. And enables you to describe what the dog looks like. But the idea in your mind, and here's the point, Plato's point, the idea in your mind, that is the reference, is not any particular dog. The idea refers to a universal, abstract, metaphysical entity that is a blueprint or is the set of all the dogs. And therefore, when you see that thing walking along, barking, wagging his tail, it reminds you of the word. The word refers to the idea. The idea conjures up the universal set, and you can identify. You can take that thing that's walking along. You put him in a pigeonhole called dog. Now you know the dog. That's what to know a dog means. That's true of anything in the world. That's how you know anything. how you know a person. So it comes back again to the reference to the universal within us. Now the set, that is the set of all dogs, but it's interesting for us to note here, the set of all dogs, that is the universal dog, the abstract metaphysical set, that the blueprint of all the dogs in the universe, that set is not a dog. It's the set of all dogs, but it itself is not a dog. And well, similarly it is with God. In the Upanishads, God is referred to as the cosmic man, the universal man. And the cosmic man, that is God, the Adi Purusha, is not a particular person. He's not a particular man or an actual man or a woman or a child. And yet he is a person because he is a self-conscious being. And so that's why we call him, okay, he's not a person. Maybe we could call him a meta-person. But you also are a meta-person. Remember we said, you understand God, you understand yourself. According to yoga psychology, according to the teachings of Vedanta, you also are not a person in the sense that, etymologically, the word person comes from the Latin, the persona. The persona is like a megaphonic mask that the actor wears on a stage. Your personality, you have a personality. You have many sub-personalities with which we are fully identified. And therefore we take our personality, our personhood to be real. And yet with a little introspection, and as students of Indian philosophy, you know that you are not your persona. You're not all the roles you play in the melodrama of life. You are not your body or your mind or your thoughts or your feelings. But rather that you are a metaphysical self-conscious being. You are meta. You are above the person that you think yourself to be. And, so the thesis here is that God, what is God? Conception of God in Indian philosophy, or as I'm presenting it to you this morning, is that of a universal macrocosmic, self-conscious being. Now, we can ask a question, if God is in fact a universal cosmic person, that is a unity, a unified whole, why is it that in all different religions, when we read the accounts of the visions of the saints and the mystics, they always describe God as having a particular name and form? Nobody talks about the Vishwa Rupa Darshana of chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita. Everybody talks about, when they have a vision of God, God is described as having a particular name and form. And This is because this is technical Sanskrit terminology, the nama rupa. That means the name and the description of the entity that we are describing. So God has a particular name and form, and this is natural. Why is it that they just always describe it as being a particular individual person when they actually see God? That's because the saints and the mystics are individual men and women. And so when they see something that is as an individual, we have a point of view. And as an individual, we always have a cognitive perspective. We always approach something from our own point of view. That's natural. Every individual sees reality from his own point of view. Now, this is not relativism. It just means is that you're a human being and you're approaching, there's a thing, there's a fact of the matter, there's a way that things really are, but different people are going to approach it in different ways. Just as you come to the temple, you come up to the temple, you're going to see the front of the temple. All right, did you see the temple? Yes. But you didn't see the back or the side. Someone else coming from that would have approached it from a different point of view. But it's the same. The thing in itself is the same. Similarly, it is when we approach something that's cognitive relativism. That's not truth relativism. That's called cognitive relativism. That means that a photographer chooses how he will frame the picture. The critic will decide how he will interpret the text. And interpretations of a text, whatever it be, may be very different. But the art holon, that is the text itself, will always be the same. And so this explains to us why there are in Indian philosophy many different, that God is described under many different names and forms. Truth is one. Ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. That's the statement of the Rig Veda in ancient time. Truth is one. Sages call it by many different names. Why? Because the universal God, the cosmic man, is approached from different avenues, is seen from different cognitive perspectives, and is described under different names and forms. Just as a diamond, when you look at a diamond, you will see one facet, one little face of that diamond. Nevertheless, you will insist that, yes, I saw the diamond. Nobody says, oh, I just saw, did you see the diamond? No, I didn't see, I just saw a facet of the diamond. You don't say that. Because when we see, we don't see the facet. We see the diamond. When we see we always see under an aspect, but we don't see the aspect. We see the thing in itself. We see the object. And so that's why God is described with many having many different names and having many different forms. And you may be, at first study of Indian philosophy, you may think, well, which one is it? Which God is it? And the answer is that it's the same person being described from many different points of view. This helps us to clarify a little bit our idea of God in Vedanta. The conception of God in Vedanta, this is not, if you want to give it a name, this is not polytheism. Polytheism maintains that all of the names and forms, each name and form is an individual, actual, separate deity. So this conception of God that we're speaking of this morning is not polytheism. It's not monotheism. Monotheism, of course, maintains that God is a particular, that the universal what we call the universal cosmic man, the Adi Purusha, is a particular person. That is, he has one natural name and one real name and form. That distinguishes him as a particular person. The idea that if there are 50 people in this room, there's another person, God, that's 51. So he's in addition to all of us, there's another guy who, this is not Vedanta, this is not monotheism. Of course, monotheism is also a form of dualism, which maintains that God is separate from the universe. That's dualism. Now, of course, in the Vedanta philosophy, as you know, it gets maybe a little confusing that we teach three doctrines: dualism, qualified non-dualism, and non-dualism. There's a whole evolution of the conception of God. So I've skipped over the first stage, which is dualism, monotheism, to the second stage, which is not monotheism. What then would you call it? Well, it's not pantheism. Pantheism believes that God identifies God with the universe. Pantheism is just materialism. It's just another word. God is the universe. And of course, pantheism denies that is, the universe is like a superorganism. But the pantheists will always will admit that that everything functions as a unified, maybe a unified whole, but will always definitely deny that unified organism is a person. There's no personal God in pantheism. This is not Vedanta. Vedanta is not pantheism. We could say, is it theism? Well, not really. That's why none of these words work. What's your belief? Well, it's not deism. It's not monotheism. It's not polytheism. It's not pantheism. We won't go through all the other isms. It doesn't fit any one of them. Maybe we could call it monism, because monism means one. There is one being. The thesis here is that there is one being and one great universal person, the whole that includes all the parts. There's one in the many. So we could call it a form of monism. It's a kind of monism. It's a kind of holism, because they're parts, they're individuals, they're parts of the larger whole. In Sanskrit, it is called, I'll give you the technical name for this doctrine, which I've described for you this morning. It's called Vishishtadvaita Vedanta. This is the second stage in the conception of God in Vedanta. It's not dualism. It's called qualified non-dualism. We're going to stop here at qualified non-dualism, because if we go to the next stage, all the gods get dethroned. And on that throne is put the self of man. So we're not going to go there. So we're going to stop, when we talk about the personal God, students of the Advaita Vedanta fully accept this concept of the personal God, as long as we think of ourselves as being a real person. We have to the logical entailment is, we have to admit that there is a cosmic person. As long as you identify as a person, as an individual, you have to admit that there is a comparable, as long as you see yourself as a part, you have to admit there's a whole, that they're both there, that one is logically entailed by the other. And so this is called, if you want to give it a technical name, it's called Vishishta Dvaita Vedanta, that is qualified non-dualism. And so this is our conclusion. Our conclusion this morning is we've made several strong claims about the personal God. And you have to process this in your own understanding. Do you believe it? Does it make sense? Do you think it's true? How would you know it's true? We're not getting into all that. We're not getting into validity claims. I'm just describing to you what is the idea. This great cosmic being, this great cosmic person. We made several claims about this cosmic person. Number one, about this God, call him God. It doesn't really help for us to call him, well, maybe it does, call him Ishwara. Ishwara, referring to that, which refers particularly to that cosmic person. We've made several claims. Number one, that God exists. Number two, that God is a person, a self-conscious being. God is not a superorganism that behaves like a person. God, the idea is, the belief is that God is a person. What is a person? A person is a self-conscious being. And that God is not an individual, not an actual person. He's not a man, woman, or child, but he's a cosmic. God is a cosmic, universal person. And that God can be described under many different aspects. So what you have here is a kind of a theory of everything. And all that remains is the practice, theory and practice. That is all that would remain, if you accept the theory, would be to enter into a relationship with this God, to realize God, to do yoga sadhana in order to be able to realize God, and finally to see God in everything. Om Dyo Shantihi Antariksham Shantihi Prithivi Shantihi Apo Shantihi Oshadaya Shantihi Vanaspataya Shantihi Vishwe Deva Shantihi Brahma Shantihi Saravam Shantihi Shantireva Shantihi Same Shantiredhi Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. Om, peace is in heaven, peace is on the earth, peace is in the sky and in the waters. The herbs and plants and trees are full of peace. The gods are peaceful. May this eternal universal peace enter our souls and beings. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.